At one stage in my life, I was involved with the regular chaplaincy meeting held on a Tuesday night at our local men's prison. It grew to be a very happy and loving fellowship that significantly improved the lives of those men who attended it. Toward the end of their sentence, they were gradually reintroduced to life outside by weekends out of prison. And sometimes men who had nowhere else to go stayed with our family. We, me and my husband, would stay in touch with some of them after their release, because the time of finding their feet again in the wider world was quite fragile in many respects. And there was one man who came to stay with us as a lodger in our home on his release, because he had no home to go to, no family, and no other address to give, which he needed in order to be released. Life had not been kind to that man. He'd grown up from early childhood in a series of institutions and foster homes where he'd been routinely abused. He belonged nowhere and had no one. On his release from prison, he was in a state of near mental collapse because he'd just done a stint in solitary confinement after getting into a fight with another inmate. He loved us dearly, but was not especially easy to live with. He got his benefit money once a week, gave me his rent from it without fail, then took the rest down to the pub and drank it away within an hour or two. Alcohol made him paranoid, so after that he usually got into a fight. His friends burgled our relatives' home when they were away on holiday, and he himself stole any money we left lying around, and psychologically he needed more than we felt able to give. So after a while we found him a flat to live in. He did well for a while, got himself a little kitten, then trod on the kitten and killed it when he was drunk one night, which broke his heart. He wandered round the town with its body inside his coat all night, in a state of mental anguish. Then his utility bills fell due. As he explained to me, he'd never paid a bill in his life. His modus operandi was to ignore the bill and reminders and, as he put it, go into prison for a lie down when non-payment resulted in legal action. Eventually we lost touch, and I don't know what became of him. Something that intrigued me during the time he was travelling along with us was that we both lived in the same town, Hastings, but his Hastings and ours were like two completely different places. Our Hastings was full of quiet, reliable, chapel-going people whom you could trust and who would do anything they could to help you. It was a safe and friendly place to be. His Hastings was a blur of alcohol, violence and poverty, with a drug dealer handy on every street corner, where you stole what you needed and got into fist fights with your friends. And yet, both these environments were the exact same town. There's a brilliant scene in C.S. Lewis's book, The Last Battle, where towards the end of the story, the characters go into a stable. The stable, I think. There they find the environment of a palace where a sumptuous banquet has been laid out for them. They set to and enjoy the feast, except for a couple of the dwarves who simply cannot perceive their environment in the same way, but complain bitterly about how cold and draughty and filthy it is. Encouraged to eat, they are horrified by being, as they see it, pushed to taste rotten vegetables and mucky straw. They just cannot enter the reality the others are enjoying. And yet, they're all in the same place. The Buddhists have a saying for this: wherever you go, there you are. The Bible story we heard this morning was about Jesus stilling the storm. He and the disciples were all in the same boat, but he was sleeping peacefully while they were panicking because the boat was about to capsize. They were not delusional or prone to exaggeration. The tempest was real, and so was the danger. But when they woke up Jesus and drew his attention to the problem, he addressed the storm. Peace, be still. And the storm settled down. As someone once said about Jesus and the healing of men with leprosy, instead of Jesus getting leprosy, the leper got what he had. Now, Jesus was not immune to the vulnerabilities and limitations of physical existence. He wept, he got hungry and thirsty, and very tired. I mean, Jesus was crucified. But he demonstrated the power of the prophetic life. Instead of the turbulence of the storm invading his spirit and throwing him off balance, he restored calm to the storm. When Jesus rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, the next thing that happened was the Holy Spirit was poured out upon all people at Pentecost. From that point on, the power and responsibility of the prophetic life became an every believer ministry. Part of our job as his disciples, part of our faith practice, is to transmit and deliver and communicate and initiate his peace and healing. The last few years have been turbulent and somewhat devastating in many respects, and the indications are that the turbulence is likely to deepen and spread rather than diminish or resolve. Because the turbulence is at root ontological, existential, spiritual, not merely circumstantial, the only effective way to address it is on the ontological, existential, and spiritual level. That's where we have to meet it and speak peace into it. So, for some people, it's showing up as the fallout of political ineptitude or intentional strategy. For others, it's manifesting as economic difficulty. For others, it's relational, or maybe it's issues of mental or physical health. None of these is imaginary. They are all absolutely real. Homelessness is increasing. The health service is inundated. Excess deaths continue to be way above what they should be. The turbulence we are passing through is actually and in fact happening. The storm is real and the boat is rocking, and yes, we might capsize. Of course, for all of us, the day comes when whatever happens has our number on it. Like the day came when Jesus was arrested in Gethsemane and the hideous realities of his torture and death grimly unfolded. Up to that point, wherever he went, he brought peace and healing, restoration and hope. And since Pentecost, that's our job too. Ultimately, even his death was not the end of it. Out of what looked like, and was, the most horrific tragedy and sickening injustice, came the salvation of the world and the hope of all creation. So, when it comes to our everyday reality, what I'm saying to you is this: our job, our work as disciples, is to be what determines the way things proceed, to align with the peace, not the storm. We do this by the quality of our presence and by aligning ourselves with the light, by standing in the name of Jesus, standing on the promises of God. Our work is to anchor the light in the spot of earth where we dwell, acting as a channel or lightning rod for the incoming power of the Holy. This is not difficult. We're doing it all the time. You can see it if you look at instances like our family and the man who stayed with us on release from prison. We both lived in Hastings, but the nature of the Hastings we lived in was determined by the daily life choices we made. Now, of course, what that man was grew to some extent out of the miserable childhood he had. But another person who had a similar upbringing was the spiritual teacher Wayne Dyer, who took the circumstances and experiences of his life like a potter takes clay and moulded them into something useful and beautiful. Some people have a better start than others, but while that is true, it should not be a distraction from aligning ourselves with the light to anchor it into our spot of earth. Part of the task is to let neither disadvantage nor privilege distract us from the prophetic life, from focus on what we are here to do. Some of us have a better start than others. This makes it pointless to judge or criticise how someone else is doing. Let's just take it that they're doing their best. Our work is to hold our own light steady. In the times ahead, as turbulence deepens and increases, we can weep with the sorrowing, and we will each have our own cross to bear in every day. But we must not lose sight of the responsibility of prophetic life. We speak peace into the storm, not the storm scaring the bejesus out of us. We intentionally, deliberately, faithfully, each and every day, are to improve whatever circumstances we find waiting for us in the morning, just by showing up. We are to bring in the peaceful kingdom of Jesus, not add to the storm. We have, by his Spirit, both the power and the responsibility to add our commitment and dedication to what will, in the end, tip the balance. We are to act in favour of healing and peace and light. This need only be little things: how we relate to one another, how we manage our resources, how we run our homes, the small daily choices we make. Each and every one of those things makes a difference, and never did it matter more than it does at the present time. We are here to announce and extend the reach of Christ, and doing so is both our responsibility and our right. We have the power.